All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show. Please make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications so you never miss an episode. Today, very excited to welcome back to the show the owner of Football GamePlan, Emory Hunt. Emory, good to always have you back.
Glad to be back, man. Appreciate being on with you guys.
For those that don't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know at this point, but Emory's Football GamePlan draft guide every year, one of the best of them, right up there with the tops. Dane Brugler, Matt Waldman, Emory Hunt. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, Emory, and I enjoy it every time. So thank you. I know this is a busy time of year.
Well, listen, for those that are loyal subscribers to the guide, I've put these out since 2020. Right now, you would have over 4,300 individual scouting reports at your fingertips. So, I mean, you talk about the largest guide in existence. It is the largest guide in existence.
Was it 947, 940 this year?
The actual number of evaluations in this guide was 901. And so, it's crazy because a lot of guys went back to school, but for the most part, it was, it's still a large class. I'm already anticipating what that number is going to look like for next year with all the guys that are finally going to be done.
Right? Next year will be intense. How many more do you think you'll have to go through next year because of all the super seniors?
That's a great question. I would probably, let's say 2023, I had over 1,000 individual scouting reports. So, it was maybe like 1,064 or whatever. 2025 is probably going to be close to 1,100 to maybe 1,200.
Wow. and then we'll finally get back to normal after that, right? That will be the last of the COVID seniors.
Exactly. And so we'll get back to a normal class, which, when I think back to the first guide I did in 2020, we were probably at 650, and remember that was a year when everyone got the free year and they went back. So, it's going to be interesting to see how a normal class looks like, because we know NIL is now keeping guys in school longer and they're popping around a different program. So they're staying longer. I just wish we get back to 5 to play 4 and move on.
What were you thinking when you started the very first one? It had to be a daunting operation.
No, what's interesting, man? I think what really happened, COVID forced all us to sit down. And so I've been flirting with the idea of putting out a draft guide since 2017. And I didn't know whether I was going to sell it as a physical book, because I had sold books before on footballgameplan.com, like 4 separate books, right? So should I make the draft guide a physical guide, or should I try to do it digitally where you keep up with the times? But I kind of kicked the can down the road and was putting all this information out on my YouTube channel. But in 2020, I was like, man, instead of me just doing, what I was doing in terms of getting these guys graded and putting it up on the YouTube channel with just a name and maybe a number, let me add some more meat to it. Now, I always had the meat here in my office where it was handwritten notes. So instead of just handwriting the notes on the prospect, I just put that into the digital form. And now everyone has exactly what I think about the prospect and exactly the grade that I have on these guys, as opposed to me like losing storage room here in my basement where I just keep binders this big of just handwritten notes. And I can just put all that online so everybody has it.
Emory, what has sparked your love for football, man? You've been doing this for a long time, over 4,000 reports. Your most recent report has 88 different quarterbacks that are covered and kind of, looked into. You look into UFL, XFL, arena football. You love all types of balls. So what sparked your love of the game?
Well, I played ball. I played ball in college, and I coached right out of college. And also just, growing up in the era where football it was an event, right? Mm-hmm. And everything led up to Saturday and Sunday. And I think now I don't feel like a lot of the people appreciate that what we all grew up with, where you got maybe 3 games on a Sunday, because you had your 1 o'clock game, your 4 o'clock game, your primetime game.
Yeah.
And we only saw what was local in our area. So I grew up in New Orleans, so it was just Saints. And the AFC team that we kind of saw a lot of was either the Raiders or the Bills. And so now you see football 24/7, 365, and you're seeing everybody on Sunday because we all got the same streaming platforms and whatnot. So it kind of takes away that love, that anticipation, because we kind of oversaturated, but in a good way. But
Yeah.
that's why I want to kind of bring it back to what I used to like and what I used to know of the game of football and covering it. And I always realized that there was a way more talented athletes out there playing football
Absolutely.
than what we see in the NFL. So why not talk about that? Why not talk about NFL Europe and all of those different, even the women's tackle football? Why not bring
Mhm.
that up? Because these women are out there playing the game just as hard as some of these guys are at the semi-pro level. So it's like, let me talk about it all because that's how much I love the game.
Love it.
You do TV, podcasts, write the book. Writing the book be hard enough if you didn't do the other stuff. Do you have a favorite, Emory?
That's a great question. I think it's all one and the same because it kind of all ties in together. If I'm writing, I'm constantly learning about different schemes, different things, different aspects surrounding the game, which gets you more excited about the game in practice. And then you go and watch it as a commentator and calling it, so you're feeling the energy of the crowd and you're feeling the energy of the game. And as you're preparing for the broadcast that you're calling, you're watching film and you're studying different breakdowns, so you're getting a good sense of what this coach may do when this coach does this and what vice versa. And then when you're analyzing the game on set, you kind of tying all that together. And in terms of the draft, it's like, man, it's everything works. It's a one big circle. So as an analyst, you have the scouting background, and as a scouting background, you have the fan background, you have the research background. All that stuff just kind of works hand in hand to where you do one thing, it kind of rolls right into the next, which is fun to see.
Let's get into some of these quarterbacks. Commanders sit at number 2. This is what the all the fuss is about. When you're evaluating these guys, Emory, I'm curious. The college game and the NFL game, to me, have become so completely different over the years. I mean, almost like trying to compare baseball and softball at this rate. How are we to project these guys from one level to the next as the games differ so much?
You gotta, it's funny because I feel like the NFL game has become more like what we've seen from the CFL and college game. CFL has been ahead of the forefront in terms of what we now know in the NFL, how it's predominantly shotgun, how it's predominantly spread out open, a lot of outside zone, inside zone, a lot of the passing game has become prevalent. You hear established to run, but now you're really just kind of getting your passing game going. And so the NFL has kind of like closed that gap to where you're seeing guys being able to leave college, step right in as a rookie and have success. And a lot of the times it's because of them not being married to that antiquated way of doing things. Like, hey, you got to learn my system. This is what I run. Hey, what this guy does well, and everyone seems to be on the same page. Like, hey, coach, scouts like him, coaches like him, coordinator likes him. Okay, we're going to make this work.
To that end, Emory, so what are some transferable traits that you look for, taking these college prospects to the next level? And what barriers do you see in the pro game that stop college athletes from being successful next level?
The speed of the game, number one,
Okay.
which stops them, because in college, and a lot of this, I remember bringing this up maybe 8 years ago, and people didn't know what I was talking about, but now I start to see it brought up a lot, and now it's become commonplace to say it. But it's the hash marks. The width of the hash marks widens the game out, minimizes the pressure for the quarterback. You kind of can see where everything is coming from. You could make the reads and make the throws accordingly. But the problem now, when you go to the NFL, the hash marks are closer. The game is played entirely in the middle. The pressure comes faster, and you got to have a decision ready to go. Because if you're one of those quarterbacks that love to sit back there and just want to, you had all this free time in college where you just picking and choosing where you want to go with the ball, never really had to make a decision. And now you come in the pro game where as soon as that ball hits your hand, that defensive end is almost flattening that curve around that tackle, and you have to really get rid of the football because the pressure comes almost instantly. And that ties into the other question you asked of what I look for the most. How do these dudes handle pressure? If you're able to handle pressure and handle situational football pressure well, as third down offense, backed up offense, red zone offense, end of game situations, that's all I care about, because everything else is just cosmetic. You can have the strongest arm, you can have the fastest speed, and how well do you play when you need to play the best? And it's situational. And so if you're playing great situational football there, everything else gonna fall in line. And so I look for who's playing great situationally. We call it the it, and you can kind of see it consistently from some of these guys. And that's where the good separate themselves from the great, and from the average.
The quarterbacks this year are an interesting evaluation. We've had people on the show so far tell us that Drake May's the best quarterback in the group, and we've had people on that say Drake May doesn't have a first round grade. We've had people say Jaden Daniel worries them because of the frame and how long it took him to get going. And then we've had people say, don't knock a guy for getting better over time. That's what you're asking. Where do you stand on what seems to be the biggest divide of the draft so far?
First, let me say this. I don't like how people just letting JJ McCarthy slide by being slim. Everyone's pointing at Jaden Daniels when McCarthy is built like him too. Like this, you know what I'm saying? Like he's just a little bit shorter. But I don't know what, like he's built like he's 195 as well. So weight is never something that I cared about. Like everyone just assumes, because this size, he's gonna get hurt. If that's the case, Brandon Jacobs would have been the most indestructible running back in football history, right?
Yeah.
Remember, we have Robert Griffin PTSD.
We do.
I mean,
we do.
At the end of the day, so guys get hurt. It's a freak occurrence.
Yeah,
you see it happen all the time. We didn't think Anthony Richardson was hurt on the touchdown he scored where he hit his head. It's like he got hurt on that. You know what I'm saying? So it just rare. You just hope that you get lucky enough to not get hurt. So that's my soapbox about injuries. Stop looking at size and think, oh, he's gonna get hurt. You know what I mean? That is doesn't compare. That doesn't equate to injury. Now to the football side of things, even just and before I get technical, I just want people to understand, if you're watching a game, just as a fan or just as a lay person, you're just watching the game, and you see Jaden Daniels play and you see Drake May play, your eyes will tell you who's better. Drake May is not better than Jaden Daniels, right? Jaden Daniels is making the plays that you like, oh wow, like they get you up out of the seat. Now, from a football technical perspective, where does Jaden Daniels succeed more than Drake May? Situational football, red zone offense, third down offense, big game situations, backed up offense. If you go back to where Jaden Daniels got to LSU, right? The first game they had against Florida State, it was last year. And as bad as LSU played in that ball game, like they were, I mean, neighbors had to fumble punt. There's all kind of chaos, right? In Florida State, Jaden Daniels needed 99 yards to go and score and tie that game. Best believe he drove them down the field and got that touchdown, and they missed the extra point, and they lost that game, right? And then we go fast forward the rest of that season. Where did they end up? The SEC championship game. That's insane, right? And so that was last year. This year, we've seen him, need to score a lot to win ball games. Yes, they was losing games 53-51. That's not a Jaden Daniels fault, right? That's a defensive fault. So Jaden Daniels has answered a lot of questions. If you want to really go back to his freshman year at Arizona State as a 17-year-old freshman, look what he did against Justin Herbert in that top 6 ranked Oregon team out there, juxtaposed to how Herbert played against that Arizona State defense, had the multiple turnovers. Daniels didn't have a turnover and was able to get the upset win. Now, Drake May, I feel like the talk around Drake May is a lot like how it is around Justin Herbert. It's always the what ifs. Oh, if he had this, or if they had this, he didn't have this. Now all of a sudden people act like Austin Eckler not a good running back, right? Like he never had a running game. Like, damn, like they just got like Eckler wasn't good out there in LA. Like he wasn't
fantastic. He's a great player, yeah, of course. Yeah.
You had all these tall receivers, and yeah, some guys couldn't stay healthy, but Herbert has had weapons. And I feel like with May, you like the pieces on paper. Like he definitely can throw the football, can make every throw you want him to make. Definitely is an athlete. He can take off and run it and be a considerate run threat. Definitely has gotten better, over time, I feel like. And he has the benefit of upside. So he's not a finished product. He has room to grow. I think he even still has room to fill out his frame, because I feel like he's a little bit lean. He's built almost like a swimmer, where he has that lean frame. But he has more weight, but he's a little bit leaner with that weight, almost like a basketball player. He can make all the throws. He can he definitely can, be a +1 in the run game, but you don't see it consistently over the course of 60 minutes. And I think that's where the difference is between him and Jaden Daniels, which is why I would take Daniels over May. And I feel like if we start to, there's going to always be the quarterback tax. There's going to always be, if teams, and I blame Kirk Cousins for that, where if guys, right, if you just kind of judge guys, if like they do that with every other position. Oh, this running back is a first round talent. Boom, he's taken in the first round. But this running back kind of is a second round talent. The second round. With these quarterbacks, if you think they're a second round player, do not take them in the first round because you set the unrealistic expectations. The truth of the matter is you need 53 guys to help you win a Super Bowl. Yes, a good quarterback, a great quarterback, or a franchise quarterback, as they like to say, gives you a better shot, but the team gives you a better shot to win the football game. So make sure your team is good before you go out chasing the one mythical creature that you think can just by himself lead your team to a Super Bowl, because that's not the case.
We hear fit a lot for these guys. How do you like the fit in Washington if the pick's Daniels?
Here's what I think say about fit. The better player is always the better fit. Like, if I had a choice between, if I want to run, downhill gap scheme, power run game, or outside inside zone, right? And I was like, I got a choice between Barry Sanders and me. I'm going to take Barry Sanders in either scheme because he's the better player. Like, period. You know what I'm saying? And you figure it out when you have the better player. Like, think about this, man. And this is, I'm glad you brought, because we're now, and this is part of the whole football conversation, right? Where the football conversation we grew up on, where you really only saw a football pregame show on Sundays. So you had to hear everything on Sunday before the game kicked off. But because now we have 24/7 coverage, we hear football talk all day, every day. Right. So this has become a football conversation talking point on social media where everyone has something to say. But do you think we cared that when the posse was there in Washington, they had the one tall receiver and everybody, Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark were essentially 5'6" to 5'11" and under? We didn't care. Did we care that the Smurfs of the early 80s no. So we just, if you have good players will do good things on the field. So the talent matters more than the fit. Like, because if you're a good coach, you're going to want the talented player and you're going to find a way to make it fit.
Gotcha. In regard to that, right? So we have Terry McLaurin, we have Jahan Dotson here in DC. Do you think that's enough talent and support for Jaden Daniels to be successful at the pro level? Like, do you think they need another wide receiver? And what wide receiver would complement their skill sets, in your opinion?
Well, there's a bunch of receivers out there.
Absolutely.
And you also got to remember the tight end position, which I think Washington has a decent tight end, group. Don't forget about Amani Rodgers, coming off injury. He's someone that people sleep on. But you always can add, I'm a big Milne fan. I think he is a good receiver. Diami Brown, can he step up and be consistent? So and again, the draft is bigger than the first round. So there's going to always be room to add talent. And just to show you how talent can enhance other talents, right? Going into his senior season, no one talked about Terry McLaurin until Dwayne Haskins, who was super talented and throwing the deep ball and throwing the ball at the intermediate level of the field, introduced the country to Terry McLaurin, right? Because he was just a core special teamer. So we may have someone on the roster in terms of the coach staff may thinking like, okay, well, we got somebody that's we ready to step up, but we hadn't had the guy to feature him. Maybe we get the guy that could feature him. Maybe this guy steps up and shows you what he can do. And I think that's where I'm always kind of like, make sure you look at your own house first before you go out and shop around, right? And I think that's where, even though there's no downside to adding more talent, don't get me wrong. Like, if they see someone in the second round or whatnot, that is an upgrade at receiver, they're like, hey, we got to grab them. By all means, do your thing, because that's going to breed more competition, maybe even bring out the better side of another player. But I do feel like, sometimes there's some answers on the roster, and we've seen a good quarterback can kind of elevate the guys around him, which is why you saw CJ Stroud take Houston to the playoffs last year. You saw what Anthony Richardson was able to do in his brief stint with the Colts, and then subsequently by Gardner Minshew, kind of helping push those guys almost to the brink of the playoffs, one game back out of the playoffs. So we've seen Russell Wilson get drafted by a team that went 7-9 back-to-back years. And his first season as a rookie, they go to the playoffs, and then the second season they go to the Super Bowl. So, and that's what Sidney Rice and unknown Doug Baldwin, who became Doug Baldwin. You know what I'm saying? And Golden Tate. So it's not saying that those guys couldn't play, but they were already on the roster. You know what I'm saying? And so those guys, with a guy that can get them the football, elevated everybody.
Were you a Jahan Dotson fan coming out of the college? Okay.
I was at the Maryland Penn State game.
Yeah, I know about that game.
It's just like I felt like in Maryland, I felt like had some good athletes within the back seven. I was like, man, it's this dude, like he ran. It was one play. It was a deep ball. It was like a slant, and he took the slant. And he just almost like those guys was like standing still, and he just zoomed past everybody. I was like, goodness, like this dude is insane, man. Like, and so I always been a Dotson fan, and excited to see what he can do, even more so, health permitting, within this offense.
Emory, with Jack Del Rio out and Dan Quinn in, what kind of bump do you think that gives to like a Benjamin St. Juice or the other corners specifically that maybe struggled last year with that system, maybe not being used quite right? What do you think about that? And specifically, I'm also thinking about the first rounder from last year, Forbes.
Well, one, is going to mean another job for Dante Foreman, a Fowler, who saying wherever Quinn at, Fowler will be right there. That's his guy, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like when Parcells got hired, it was going to be Richie Anderson, it was going to be Keith Byers, it was going to be somebody that he worked with, Curtis Martin or whatever, right? Testaverde is going to be on with him, but with Quinn, and the reason why I brought up Fowler was partly as a joke, but also because he understands, hey, I need to get as much pass rush as possible, a rotation of pass rushing depth, because if I have that, then I have guys on the back end that can do less. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to put as much strain on those dudes on the back end because I'm going to get pressure with the front four. And so that's what his focus is. But listen, we know Forbes can play despite what we saw last year. We know he's not a bad football player. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, and I will say this, a lot of times we're seeing teams, we're seeing a bigger adjustment for cornerbacks as opposed to quarterback, receiver, running back. Like they're able to step almost seamlessly step right in and play well. But cornerbacks we found are having a little bit of an adjustment period, adjusted to the NFL game, which is wild for me to see or say, because how the passing game is at the collegiate level. But I do know that St. Juice and Forbes are good players, and with the benefit of a pass rush, we should see those guys, especially Forbes, take more advantage of playing the ball. So we should see his interception numbers jump, as opposed to what we saw from him as a rookie.
Well, they can't get worse.
Go ahead, Doug.
We're in free agency, Emory, no left tackle for the team. Charles Leno's gone. There's a lot of talk in Washington about whether you can wait till 36 or 40. Well, the class, it feels like, while deep, definitely a drop off after you get into that second round. You willing to trade some of those assets to get back up into the first round for a tackle, or you like the idea of some of the guys that'll land there at 36 and 40?
I mean, selfishly, because I had a high grade on him, Braden Daniels would be the guy I would leave just starting right there at tackle, because he was like one of my top 3 tackles, right? Good athlete, all those good things. But yeah, I've never been a fan of trying to game the draft, because the draft kind of, you could roll snake eyes. And so you're going to get your quarterback at 2. Problem solved. You got early enough picking the second round to get a good guy there. And let's say you want to add depth at tackle, because I like what they've done on the interior. I think they've gotten better on the interior. And to be completely fair and honest, I know there's been big tackle propaganda out there for decades plus, but the true offensive line is guards in the guard. If you're strong there, any quarterback worth his salt will be able to step up in the pocket and evade that outside pressure. You could also run the ball better when you have guards in the guard play. But we've let in big tackle propaganda, get people to believe that left tackle, you got to get one, right? And now you got all this interior pressure. But in all seriousness, I like the moves they made on the interior. Tackle, yes, you can always add depth, because even though we talk about, let's say the draft is about runs, we know within the first 3 we expect will be quarterbacks, right?
Uh-huh.
The wild card is number 4. But let's say everybody stays where they are, don't trade. Arizona could start the potential run on receiver, right? Because we know they need a receiver, or will potentially take one. Tennessee is right there at 5, or Chargers is there at 5. We know they need a receiver, but they could also be one of those sneaky teams that take a lineman. And then we know the Giants at 6 need a receiver. So what I'm saying is, you could see teams, go on a run with certain positions, which pushes elite players down. So you may get the first tackle coming off the board at pick 7, potentially. It could be 5 with the Colts, with the Chargers, or 7 with the Titans.
Yep.
And then we may see another run on tackles, right? So, because why not? And so, but 11, 12, and 13 could also need quarterbacks, which could, so there could be a situation where Washington could see a potential legit stud at tackle still be there at the top of the second round. Or if they get into the 20s and you feel like, okay, well, we got pretty good depth at certain spots. Maybe we have this guy as an elite player. Maybe we can take an outside shot to go get him. That's when, I would try to target to move up. Otherwise, kind of sit pat, let the ball, let the game come to you, let the board come to you, and then make your moves there. Because we've seen teams like Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know if they cheat, but, I feel like every good player seems to fall to them, bypass. Like, how funny was it 2 years ago? We're talking pre-draft, like in January. Oh, Najee Harris looks like a Steeler. Everybody has this thought, and then he ends up going to Pittsburgh. Like, how? You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, like, if you just kind of stay fat, know who you are, have a philosophy, there's going to be guys that are going to fall to you. So I would always be a little bit reluctant to trade unless it's within a reasonable striking distance.
George, we got a new exercise we're going to try out today. Let's get it started.
Yeah, let's give it a shot, Emory. I'm looking forward to this. So it's called Cluster Buster, right? So we're looking at the big boards of the draft. We're going to look at 2 or 3 positional players, share the same position. And what I want you to do is rank the player 1 through, we have 3 different options. Rank them 1 through 3. Give me a brief breakdown of the player and tell me why the number 1's your favorite. If that makes any sense. You got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it. So speaking of tackles, right? So let's say Washington trades up. They're looking at the 20 to 30 range potentially. We have Troy Fautanu from Washington. We have Amarius Mims from Georgia. And we have Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. How would you rank them 1 through 3 and why?
Fautanu, Guyton, and then Mims.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Fautanu is my number 1 tackle overall. So the fact that he will still be there, that's a no-brainer.
You're not worried about the whole guard play by any chance? People kind of
I watched him dominate a lot of the guys that we're talking about in the first round at pass rush, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Latu, the other defensive end at UCLA.
Okay.
Ellis at Utah.
Okay.
Let's think about it. We got a lot of Pac-12 pass rushers, and every game I watch, here he is out there doing great things. So leave him out there, right? Until he proves otherwise, leave him out there at tackle. Guyton, because I feel like Guyton is a solid overall player, good on both ends, like just on the outside of that top 5 or whatnot, in my opinion. And Mims, I like the frame, but I need Mims to stay healthy. Like Mims misses a lot of time. It has missed a lot of time. And you love the size, you love the frame, but you want to make sure if we're taking a chance on one, go for the for sure shot, and that's Fautanu.
Gotcha.
Mims should have never ran that 40 at the combine.
Shit off that speed. All right, let's do another one. Let's look at the edge now. Okay, so we're looking at the edge. Let's say at 36, Darius Robinson from Missouri, Adissa Isaac from Penn State, or Chris Braswell from Alabama.
Robinson, then Isaac, and then Braswell. Braswell, I feel like is one-dimensional a little bit in my.
I've seen him fall a little bit.
And Isaac, I feel like is underrated. I kind of like him. Like
people are saying that.
He's a solid player, but I mean Robinson. Even though Robinson, I think is a better 5 technique. I feel like he's like my number 1 5 technique. I love his long arms, love his ability to get off the ball and just kind of walk guys back into the line, and but not as a pure pass rusher, but as a defensive end, if from in the pure sense of the word, I think he's an excellent player. Now I would rather him right off the bat.
It's funny. I was listening to Bucky Brooks and Dino Jeremiah the other day. They were saying he's a Ravens type of player, Darius Robinson. I'm just curious. Why do you say Isaac's underrated? Why do you say he? Like, I don't really know much about him. If you could help me out.
Because everyone's focused on Chop Robinson.
That's right.
Okay.
But, you know what I'm saying? So Isaac was someone that just kind of came out, just was consistently making plays.
Okay.
He may not be the athlete that Robinson is. He doesn't have the twitch. But, man, we were talking about good football players. You know, at the end of the day, here's the thing. The league is made up 10% of stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that 10% gets marketed. But the league primarily is 90% guys in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's one of those guys in the middle that can help you win. You know, that's those underrated core guys, glue guys that can help you win football games. And again, everybody wants a star, but stars only make up 10% of the league, if that. You know what I'm saying? So the bulk of the league is getting good football players. There's no downside to having a bunch of those.
Exactly. Bucky Brooks was saying that it's smarter to hit doubles in the draft as opposed to home runs. Just get like good, solid players and build your team around that. All right, let's do two more. Let's look at wide receivers, right? So I would love it if this prospect fell to 36. I don't see it happening, but Adonai Mitchell from Texas, Keon Coleman from Florida State, and Xavier Legette. Those three wide receivers right there. How'd you rank them?
Man, that's tough because you know I like all three guys.
Okay.
In fact, Coleman is my number 2Z.
Okay.
AD Mitchell is my number 2X.
Okay.
And Legette is, I believe, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know I have him as an X receiver.
Okay.
Is like top 3 or top 4. But it's like those are legit studs. So now you start to look at, okay, now you dive a little bit deeper. Okay, what we have? We have a vertical guy, you know, a big play guy, topped off the defense guy in Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
We have a glue guy, a consistent guy, in McLaurin. We need someone that can really get deep. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Mitchell, to me, is more CD Lamb. He's a catch and run guy, but also can get deeper down the field. Was plagued by inadequate quarterback play at Texas. Coleman is I love Coleman because I give me those dudes that look like they like fighting, right? I would love to see him paired up with George Pickens in Pittsburgh. Like,
yeah.
You know, that's good. That would be a fun receiving tandem. So we know he's physical. We know he can attack the ball. He could get off the line of scrimmage with ease. And Legette is someone that's super explosive. He's built like, I don't know what it is, even though it's been different coaching staffs and different regimes and different. But if you go back to Sterling Sharp, to Deebo Samuel, Zola Davis, all these South Carolina receivers be built the same. Like they all physical, muscled up, you know what I'm saying? But and I love what he does after the catch. All three guys I think are very good after the catch. So that's one where you can't go wrong with any answer, but I will go AD, Coleman, and then Legette.
Gotcha. All right, one last one. Cornerbacks. So looking at 36-40, TJ Tampa from Iowa State, Max Belton from Rutgers, or Aeneas Rackstraw from Missouri.
Rackstraw would be third.
Okay.
And Tampa is good, but he'd be second.
Okay.
And Max Belton out of Rutgers is
hearing good things about Melton recently. Why do you like him?
Because you can't go wrong with a Greg Schiano coach defensive back. Like they're excellent. He is twitchy. He's a nuisance to the receiver. He's active around the ball, has the ability to turn the ball over. He's great in run support. He's a good all-around corner. And he would be phenomenal because he could play anywhere. I think he can play on either side. You can kick him down the side if you want to. He's a very good cover corner. Tampa is a good corner based off how large he is, how smooth he is athletically. Tape was really good at Iowa State. And I feel like he is someone that kind of fits what they already had. They have a lot of long, lengthy corners. He would be the prototype. Ray Straw, I feel like, is a good football player too. Someone that could be a little combo guy, like kind of could play, either side, inside or out, even though he's, 6 feet or whatnot. But I just like, and again, Missouri defensively, when you watch like, Jaden Daniels or any offense in the SEC, you always go watch the Missouri tape because their defense was really good. And Ray Straw was excellent on defense consistently.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Doug.
Emory, let's wrap with this. We ask every guest just to get on the record. Who do you think it is for the Commanders at 2?
Jaden Daniels. Listen, he is someone that, like, when you watch him play, and this is another key element. When you watch him play, you can't tell if they're up 20 or down 20. He is the same all throughout. And when he's out there, you feel like you have a chance to win. LSU was like legitimately the worst defense in the country last year, and they got to the SEC title game. This year, they was like, you know what, man, we're going to try to double down on that. We're going to try to be equally as bad. You know what? We're going to have our best pass rusher, Harold Perkins, drop back in coverage. Like, let's completely take him out of the game and play 11 on 10. And he still had these dudes battling in each and every game. So I like Jayden Daniels. I felt like, this is someone that proved himself at Arizona State, went to LSU in his first year and had those dudes in the SEC title game against Georgia. And then this past year, we saw him just kind of take it to another level. So he's battle tested. He's been through a lot. He's come out on the other side. And I just feel like that's the pick that they have to go with to reinvigorate that fan base out there in Washington.
Emory, you're the best, man. I know you're busy. We appreciate the time. Maybe we'll get you back after the draft and let us know how you think the Commanders fared.
Appreciate that, man. Thanks again for having me on. And as always, guys, I appreciate the support. And to the fans out there, footballgameplan.com/2024 draft guide, the largest draft guide in existence right now. Go get it. And it's a PDF, so don't hit me up talking about when is my book coming. I'll charge you $1,000 for this for that size of a guide, but I appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you, Emory.
Thanks, Emory.
Great, guys.